So, what happens when machines can do just about everything? I know, it sounds like pure science fiction, but the economic questions it brings up are incredibly real. And honestly, we're facing them right now. So, let's get into it and unpack the economics of a future that is arriving way faster than any of us expected. I think this question from the book Trekonomics is the perfect place to start. It really gets you to think beyond scarcity, right? That one single economic problem that has shaped, well, pretty much all of human history.
In the world of Star Trek, they've actually answered that question. They solved scarcity. Money's a thing of the past. People are totally free from the daily grind of working just to survive. Instead, they get to pursue science, art, exploration. It's this amazing utopia, all built on a foundation of technological abundance. But, okay, how did they actually get there? And, more importantly, what does any of that have to do with our world right now? Well, the answer is in the engine that powers their entire society. And you know what? It looks a lot like the technology that's reshaping ours as we speak. In their universe, they have the replicator. It's this machine that can literally create anything you need, right out of thin air. You can think of it as the ultimate endpoint of automation, the point where the cost of making stuff drops to basically zero. And look, this isn't just some sci-fi fantasy. We've actually been walking down this road for centuries. I mean, think about it. The printing press made knowledge cheap. The mechanical reaper changed farming forever. Industrial robots completely transformed manufacturing. We've been slowly, piece by piece, building our own version of the replicator. And now, with generative AI, that whole process is about to hit hyperdrive. All this technological progress is creating an incredible amount of wealth and productivity. But here's the thing, it's also creating a massive paradox. It's causing a fundamental breakdown in the promise that's held our societies together for generations. Seriously, think about that for a second. We are making more things, more services, more everything, more efficiently than ever before in human history. So why do so many of us feel financially squeezed, like we're just falling further and further behind? Where is all that new wealth actually going? This chart just lays the problem out so perfectly. Take a look at this data from the US since 1979. This first bar, that's productivity, how much stuff we're making. It's shot through the roof. But then look at the second bar. That's hourly pay for the average worker. It has barely moved. That enormous gap between the two, that's the problem. That's the core of the whole issue. What it means is that a smaller and smaller piece of the whole economic pie is going to the people doing the work. This number right here, 57%, that's labor's share of U.S. income today. Back in 2000, it was 63%. So where'd that money go? It went to capital, to the owners of the machines, the robots, and the algorithm. And this isn't just some abstract economic problem. It's deeply social. It cuts right to the heart of our social contract, that unspoken deal we all have that says, hey, if you work hard and you play by the rules, you'll get ahead. You'll get to share in the prosperity you help create. But as automation makes that gap wider and wider, that core promise starts to feel, well, like a lie. And when people feel like the system is rigged and no longer works for them, it leads to instability, to anger, and to the deep, deep divisions we're seeing all around us. Okay, so if the old rules aren't working anymore, maybe it's time for some new ones. This brings us to the really interesting part, the potential solutions. We're talking about big ideas for rewriting our entire economic operating system for this new automated age. Generally speaking, these ideas fall into two main camps. The first is redistribution. That's about sharing the economic pie more fairly after it's already baked, through things like taxes and social programs. The other camp is pre-distribution. That's about changing the recipe itself so the pie is just baked more equally from the get-go. Now, the redistribution idea that gets the most attention is definitely universal basic income, or UBI. The concept is actually pretty simple. Everyone gets a regular, unconditional cash payment. It creates a solid financial floor that nobody can fall below. And while UBI might sound like some radical new idea, it's actually been around for a surprisingly long time. I mean, we're talking about Thomas More's Utopia 500 years ago, all the way to real-world experiments in the US and Canada in the 1960s. Serious thinkers have seen the value in this for a very, very long time. And now we have some really compelling modern data. There was a recent pilot program in Stockton, California, that gave a group of people $500 a month, no strings attached. And the results? They were pretty amazing. People were healthier, they were less anxious, and, get this, they were actually more likely to find full-time jobs, not less.
So what about that other idea, pre-distribution? Well, a great example is something called a public wealth fund. The idea here is that the public, all of us together, collectively owns things that generate revenue, like natural resources or maybe even shares in big tech companies. Then everyone gets a cut of the profits. In fact, Alaska has been doing exactly this since the 80s with its oil money, paying out a dividend to every single resident every single year. Which kind of brings us full circle back to where we started. We have the technology to create almost unbelievable abundance, but we have some massive choices to make about how we're going to share it. The future, it turns out, really isn't written yet. Star Trek actually gives us some really powerful metaphors for the paths we could take. Are we going to be like the Federation, where technology is a public good that lifts everybody up? Or will we be more like the Ferengi, where it's all used for private profit and creates huge gaping inequality? Or do we risk a much darker path like the Borg, super efficient, but with a total loss of what makes us human? We can frame this choice in another way, too. Are we building a solar punk future, one that's green and communal and built on shared prosperity? Or are we just kind of drifting into a cyberpunk future? A world of high-tech, low life, where incredible technology is controlled by a tiny few and everyone else just struggles to get by. So here is the most crucial point of all this. The technology, the automation, the AI, that's coming no matter what. We can't stop it. But the kind of society we choose to build with that technology, that is 100% up to us. It is a social and political choice, not a technological one. Which really leaves us with one final big question to think about. As machines take over more and more of the physical and analytical work, what's the uniquely human work that's left for us? Maybe it's the work of caring for each other, of creating art, of governing ourselves wisely, and of building a world that is truly better for everyone.